Good evening, everyone. I want to make this brief so we can hear Dr. Gong about a very fascinating subject. Congratulations, I believe. Dr. Gong is an early life geobiologist, astrobiologist. He's based in Laramie at the University of Wyoming, where he's been for the last 3 years. He investigates the interfaces between the origin of life, biosignatures, which is past life, and space biology, perhaps the future of life. He also develops algorithms and sensor frameworks for practical applications, agriculture, wildlife, ecosystem conservation. Dr. Gong studies complex systems, self-organizational processes like life, and pattern formation mechanisms. He uses these theories to better understand how natural systems evolve in their capacity to compute and live. He's been in Laramie for 3 years. Before that, he was at the SETI Institute and the NASA Ames Research Center. Prior to that, he did his postdoc at MIT. And then prior to that, he worked in Paris at the Division of Microbiology. His PhD is from Texas A&M. His undergrad is the University of California, Berkeley, and we are thrilled and honored to have him here tonight. So please join me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Mike, for everything, for inviting me here, for your hospitality. And had a great time coming to Jackson. And today I want to introduce you a rather broad topic. And as you can see, it's really interwoven past and future and thinking about where life lies in that space. So when we think about life, it's really hard to define. We intuitively know what it is once we see it, right? You can quantify it in many ways, use physics, chemistry, biology, or computer science, but at the core, asking what life is involves much deeper questions. 3 questions, actually. First, you ask, what is life? How do you define it? And then associated with that, you want to know how did it arrive here? How did it arise? And importantly, you want to know where is it going? Is it transient? Is it going to finish? Or there's a future for it? And when we think about astrobiology, it's often framed as looking for life on another planet. But I have to say that it's far from that. It's really about understanding who we are. How did life evolve and appear on this planet? And in 1944, Schrödinger, I think some of your physicists might know, he was asking how in a universe where things are trending towards chaos, right? What life does is actually the opposite, is reducing that chaos and organize and creating order and creating complexity. And NASA defines life as a self-sustaining system that is capable of Darwinian evolution, is able to evolve and change. These definitions are very helpful. They're guiding principles for us looking for life out there, but they're rather incomplete because you don't see the life as present because it appeared sometime in the past, right? So the narrow definition of life right now is not able to guide you fully into search for life, especially life that we have never seen before. Okay. Today I want to take you a journey about our planet, the wonderful history of it, somewhat violent at times, but that is the history where the planet Earth came to be. And it all started about 4.5 billion years ago. Earth had a dramatic start. There is showing is the proto-Earth, the Earth before, and then the Theia, which is the planet body that is the size of Mars that collided to the Earth. That was right just around the solar system form. And here's a computer simulation, a fairly recent simulation telling you what happened during that time. And there are several things to see. One is that when the Theia collided into the Earth, you can see there are several events going on. There are two blobs of material being generated right there. And that bigger blob actually merged back into the Earth. And then you see the spirals, and then it all goes back in. And that tiny blob at the top, that's our moon. And if you look at the bottom left, you can see the material of the Earth and the material of Theia really mixed together. And the moon actually have about 60% of that mixture material. And that's according to this simulation. The simulation is run by really looking at different angles and really trying to test how it works depending on the size, the mass of the orbit and all of that. And the intriguing thing is the moon formed in only 35 hours. It's incredible how fast that process could be. And the other hypothesis regarding the Jian hypothesis saying that it maybe after the impact, it took millions of years for the moon to form. So the error bar is really high out there, okay? So there are evidence of remains of Theia. They're hidden under our feet. This is still a hypothesis, but most scientists agree that there are anomalies under our feet. We call them large low shear velocity provenance, and they're mostly under the Pacific Ocean and also under Africa, the continent Africa. So the material there appear to be particularly dense. And it is thought that maybe those are the remains. They're not at the surface, they're pretty close to the core. And this impact probably made a huge effect on the plate tectonics, how the plate tectonics get kickstarted, and also have a role in the magnetic field of the Earth, because all that iron that spins, right? That's how you get magnetic field. So all of that is incredibly important for life, right? So why we're looking at this, because this is part of the history, and that history already started from this impact. The moon itself also have these anomalies in gravity. So they show you that around about 4 to 3.8 billion years ago, the moon's surface received really a lot of impacts at that time. They're giant, and you can see that these dates, the dates were calculated from crater countings, because once you have a crater, other craters goes on top of it. And so you know that the bigger crater must be before the smaller crater, right? So by doing that, you can calculate the timing of things. And so the dates are relatively accurate, I have to say. And what is interesting is that around this time, when the solar system was just forming, all the planets was forming, but it's still unstable. If you look at all the materials and you line them up by density, you expect the inner part of the solar system heavier, and then going all the way out, you have water and then gas, right? So the gas giants should be at the very edge of the solar system. However, it's not always the case. If you look at the position of the gas giants today, they are very close to the inner part. So something happened, and we believe that this event called late heavy bombardment is where these gas giants, they're mobilizing to the inner part of the solar system. It's very dynamic when that happens. And when that happens, many of the bodies of these asteroids, they came raining down to the inner planets because of the disturbance. And so it's possible the Earth at the time received, and the Moon, of course, together received a lot of these asteroids that many of them containing water and lighter material. And that water is key to create the ocean. The Earth itself, the crust also contains water. But if you look at the planet Earth, 70% surface is ocean. And naturally, you wonder, where did the water come from? So two stories either come from the asteroid or coming from the Earth itself, but more likely a combination of both. Yeah. Oh, really? Let me see.
Just turn on your camera, that's all.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. All good? All right. So, good. Okay. So about 500 million years after the late heavy bombardment, this disappeared. And we know this from a combination of sedimentological methods and isotope dating and all kinds of data suggesting that around 3.5 billion years ago, life probably appeared. And this is a very different Earth. If you look at from space, the Earth looks like little oranges color, right? There is no oxygen in atmosphere yet. And even the ocean could be a very different color. But life is probably there. We know this, and I will show some evidence of that. And life is in the form of microbes, tiny microbial organisms that living together on surfaces. And at this time, the surfaces was also the site of a lot of the, even before life, right? There's a stage of prebiotic chemistry where these surfaces played a major role in creating the feedstock of life. The term feedstock is really thinking about the accumulation of materials that is used for life later on. And you can think of this, if you have a chemical reaction, you have A make B and C, right? And if you have this reaction continuously in a cycle, I'm encouraging to think about geochemical cycles, right? When these cycles happen, if you have one area that the reaction gets stuck or is a little bit slower, that material is going to accumulate, right? So the more of that, let's say, material B is accumulating, that is adding pressure to the geochemical cycle to make the cycle complete. And so this is the primitive thinking of catalytic networks or reaction networks, okay? Because there is external force forcing the cycle to complete. And if one way doesn't work, nature finds another way, right? So overall, there is a driving force that make all kinds of reaction to happen. And that's what I want to emphasize, that probably occurred before the emergence of life. How do you find this evidence of early life? I'm going to go a little faster here. mostly we are looking at the current modern Earth, the geologic map of the planet. And the take-home message here is that the Archean, really before 2.4 billion year old rocks, they're very rare. They're mostly in the red and pink region. In fact, Teton, right here, we have a really amazing deposit of Archean rocks. But the other rocks are mostly there's a lot of in Canada, in South Africa. So I'm gonna do a filter. I'm doing a computational workflow to filter where are the Archean rocks. So here is a filter looking for all the Archean rocks and anything Archean that is in the red color. And then I also want sedimentary rocks because that's where many of these microbes, records of microbes can be preserved. You want sedimentary rocks. Think of river deposits, think of wind dune type of deposit. Those are all sedimentary rocks. So once you try to find sedimentary rocks, there's very little left. Most of them are in Canada, in Greenland. There's a little bit of under the ocean over there. This is the North America continent. We don't have a lot of Teton right here. We have a lot of old rocks, but they are not sedimentary. They're mostly volcanic in origin. So I want to point your attention to two most important areas for the early life record. One is called the Barberton Greenstone Belt in South Africa, and the other place is called Pilbara Craton in Western Australia. The two most important places to find records of life. There might be more, but that there's some under the ice sheets in Greenland. We don't have access to, but with the warming of the climate, we are getting more and more access in those areas. So the Barberton Greenstone Belt is one of the almost the holy grails for early life geologists. And going there would be really amazing. I encourage you guys to try to make a trip if you can. It looks like this from the photo, and this entire region is somehow magically protected from all the plate tectonics. Think of like a floating piece of foam that is under the storm, right? It's just being pushed around, moving around because of all the plates moving for so long, and it managed to stay on top. It managed to be preserved. And some of the early records over there are pretty fascinating. The first one are these draping type of organic rich filaments. They're preserved in church. They're basically locked into a silica-rich matrix, and they were preserved very early on, we believe, and that's how you see these films. These are cross sections through the rock. So what you see are lines, but they're actually sheets. Okay, and some of them show this type of roll-up structure, showing that they're cohesive in nature and they're resilient somewhat. Okay, but this is all you get. There's no cells. You can't really see other things. This is as good as you have to preserve the very early record of life. And these materials were preserved in a ocean tidal setting. Some of them are rather high energy, so they're engaging with the forces of nature. There are also microfossils. We call them microfossils. They're about 10 microns in size. And they show this very curious lenticular structure. We don't have this in the modern life anymore. But this is really prevalent in the early record of life. We found them. They're pretty much full of organic, and they were preserved in such fashion. Life does experiments. Some experiments failed, but we still have a record of them. And these are other features that mimic cells. They have membranes, and they appear to be dividing in some cases. You can interpret it that way. It's highly debated though, because some people don't believe them. They think that this can be formed inorganically as well in many experimental settings. And the Moody's formation is really a tidal flat where you have this, we interpret them as biofilms coating the surfaces of the sand and resisting the sand to move. And in many places, you see these tiny filamentous structures. Hope you can see sort of there. And some of the filaments, if you look closer, you can see these sausage-like structures, and they're imprinted into the surface of the rock. And this is, I have to say, some of the strongest evidence of cellular microbial life in the Paleoarchean. And there are also other evidence, such as stromatolites. I had a fortune to see Mike's collection of stromatolites. They're amazing. And a lot of these are these domal shapes, right? And they have, it's a growth structure, so it's layer on top of another. And the layers in the center is thicker and it thins out to the side. So why are stromatolites interesting? Because they really tell you a lot of things about the properties of these microbial deposits. They're likely sticky, so that they can coat the surfaces, right? They trap and bind sediments, so the sediment gets stuck to it. And they also have preference at the top on the side. At the top, what you usually get is nutrient and light. You get both. And so the preferential growth should happen at the top, right? So, and also they have a regular spacing, for example. These are other types of stromatolites these are all from around 3.5 billion years ago, extremely old. But you see in many settings, they also have this conical and with regular spacing. And this is the time when we think that maybe light played a role in the early life, and that the microbes as a community, they're either competing for nutrient or for light. And they set up this spacing because they're limited. They're fighting, like you can always think of them as each community have their own turf, and they're fighting each other to get to the top. So how do we understand all of this, right? So we know that early microbe, they stay together as communities in a sticky biofilm, and they affect the sedimentary processes. And because you see these multicellular shapes, right? So they learned how to cooperate, come together as a community at that time already. And filamentous cells are no easy tricks in the story of life. Think that you have to coordinate the division of the cells. Right? You have to you don't want to grow in other weird ways. You really have to regulate the growth of division of the cells in an elongated fashion. And you need to have communication between the cells to do that, right? And you also need to manage some kind of regulation between. You don't want one cell to grow too large, the other small. So they have communication capabilities already at that time. So this life form, whatever it was, is already very complex. Almost as complex as the microbes today. And we also see that the geochemical evidence showing that these microbes, they are doing all kinds of metabolisms, including using light and then using nitrogen and sulfur. And so they are very capable at that time. So life have repeatedly crossed this different, like in any given world, right? So you have life that maybe you started from a prebiotic setting, and you have these molecules coming together, and they become larger molecules, become polymers, and then you build these protocells that mimic the settings of the cell. The part of the reason to have a protocell is to protect your internal environment. And I will say more about that because that's an important thing to keep in your mind. And then once you become enclosed, you can call yourself an individual, and then you can engage a type of Darwinian type of evolution. You can select based on the traits. And that is a major step. And there is another major step, which is called endosymbiosis, where cells of different types come together and work together like us, like humans. All animals, plants today, you see almost everything outside, you see they are the result of endosymbiosis. And so plants form this way by combining a chloroplast cell, which used to be an independent living cell, and that combined with another type of cell and a type of archaea, and then together new functions emerge. And I want to say that at this time, the selection is no longer only on the individuals. They are on the groups, on the collaborations as a group. Okay, so that's a pattern that you will see repeatedly over and over. And when you have all the life forms on the planet, you can see from all the way from the left from bacteria all the way to mammals. The really impressive thing is that all life on this planet share a common backbone is inside the DNA, right? So you can see that the mammals and the birds and throughout time, they all map back to a common ancestor. We think it's only one, but there could be more, but we don't see any record of it, right? We call it the last universal common ancestor. And the other intriguing thing is you can see on these contour lines, right? These are mass extinctions, and also bigger events like ice ages, Cambrian explosions, many mass extinctions. Some of them are caused by the Earth's volcanism. Some of them are caused by asteroid impacts. And the intriguing thing you see that is these events corresponding to a radiation event after that. By radiation, you see that the tree branch out, right? Almost every single one of the branching event happened right after a mass extinction. And you can interpret it as when you set up this collaborative arrangement, if nothing happens, it's very stable. It's stable unless you put a very strong force to disrupt the system, and then is able to branch out again. So this event, sometimes extraterrestrial, play a role in the evolution of life. These are, you can call them as accidents, but they're important accidents to us to make who we are, right? You need these things. And you may ask, what if you have an alien planet? If they don't have of these events, are they gonna stuck in the dinosaur age? I think that could be the case. Really, very well could be the case. And it's quite interesting to think that way. So I think of life as you see these trees, right? The trees, the network is embedded in the property of life itself. You can see many examples. Inside our brain is the neural network, right? And our brain is a collaborative bunch of cells that work together to give us self-awareness and consciousness. Okay, intelligence is not one cell, is always a collaborative event, and you can go as far as argue that all type of intelligence are a form of collaboration. And if you think of the properties of life, it is able to really go across scales, sometimes huge scales, from molecules to cells to organisms to ecosystem to an entire biosphere. And if you look back at the biosphere, it carries the very signature of the molecular processes. So I think of life as a self-replicating engine that pushes events happen across the scale. And in that sense, you can think of life as a planetary phenomenon. Is no longer what Darwin said in a warm little pond somewhere you suddenly have life. In fact, it is more likely you start processes of life, metabolisms globally, and then from that global event, you gradually immerse complexity and forming what we are today. The life we are today cannot be separated from the planet. And having all of that in mind, I'm going to take you a journey to Mars. And you may ponder, this is the image, a computer render, art render of the surface of Mars, showing with ocean present. This is the early Mars where we have liquid water. We know Mars probably had an ocean back then, have a lot of rivers, have a lot of events like that. Today is extremely cold and dry. And as you know, the NASA mission Perseverance rover went to Jezero crater, and this is a really sort of like a tidal, not a tidal, but a river channel going into a bigger water body, probably a lake or a small ocean type of water body. And you can see the delta that is depositing sediments, right? So this is a high profile environment that we know on Earth. We have found life as old as 3.5 billion year old. So this is a high priority target to look for life. And here's the rover looking over the landscape. And here are some information about the geology of the area. I will go very quickly. Basically, the red color over here, these are olivine minerals. They are volcanic, they're high temperature volcanic products. And then you have these pyroxenes. they're similar to olivine. They're part of the composition of a melt. When you melt rocks, they recrystallize into this kind of mineral. So these are signatures of some kind of volcanic setting. And then you have this green material. These are carbonate minerals. They're rich in magnesium and iron. So these are intriguing minerals that on Earth we know they're usually associated with life, but depending on the setting, okay. And then you also have these clay minerals. The clay minerals are eroded products of the volcanic material, but clay mineral is clays, they are sheets, right? They have their interspaced sheets. In between sheets, you have metal ions. You have a lot of catalytic capacity in a mineral like that. So this is a kind of the setting that we now looking at the Mars surface, and we know this is probably similar on the early Earth as well. So we use the Mars as a model to study how life began on Earth. And we didn't find life yet on Mars. Otherwise you'll hear about it. This is really the latest finding on some intriguing redox cycles found on the surface of Mars, involving a rather complex suite of molecules, including iron and sulfur, and also organics. And the organics becomes really interesting because if you have organics and if you have this kind of chemicals that really contains energy, metabolic source of it, they're like food for microbes on Earth, right? And then you also discover you can see this tiny mineral, maybe it's too small. There's a rim, a darker rim around it. And that rim is really the reaction is happening. And because you have carbon and you have redox chemistry happening, because you see the change of material, and then you also have redox source, right? So the environment is plausible for a biological system being there, although we haven't found anything that is really solid. But this is one of NASA calls this potential biosignature. We have to wait and be careful to interpret that. But I think is nonetheless really interesting. So Mars is just one planet out there. And we have been looking. We have the James Webb telescope looking, and we have all the spacecraft that NASA sent out, and they're looking for planets, and we found more than 6,000 planets, and that is just the sliver of all the planets out there, and because we are only looking at a very tiny patch of the sky, okay, and the thing is that the more you look, the more you will find. And the possibility is we now know statistically every single star you see in the sky is probably having an orbit of at least 3 or 4 planets. And if you count how many stars out there, there is enormous amount of planets. Although most of those planets are gas giants because they're bigger, they're easier to find. Rocky planets, very few. We only have about maybe 100 or so, and those are not in the right position, many of them. And so, but the hope is high. The hope is there that someday maybe we'll find another life somewhere. So just want to revisit this view, thinking about all that what I told you about life, the incredible journey that it took to become what it is today. And it's just fascinating, right? It's just breathtaking in many ways why we came to be here and do what we do. And nature does its own computation. And a computation is the path to create complexity. I'm doing this, I'm talking very general, very abstract, but nature is a different type of computer. It doesn't compute with, the electricity that you're giving it, like the laptop here is doing its computation. The way nature computes is really, think of computation as a process of making changes, right? And producing and processing information in that way. And the information is really about the arrangement of things. So when the river flows, when the sediment deposits, it's a form of computation because things are being manipulated, right? And at the inner level and outer level, what nature does is it computes through the physical medium and creating the complexity that we see today, including the very structure in our brain, the very neural networks that make us aware of I am myself. Okay, but on the larger scale, you can think ecosystem. They also compute because they are composed of the individuals, the societies. They're computing as well, right? So the very computational process is generating that signal that you can find. And so we are proposing that, looking for complexity might be a good marker to find life out there. And not only life reproduces itself, like a cell reproduces another cell. As humans, we are reproducing intelligence in the form of machines, computers, cell phones. If an alien look at my phone, it would think it's alive. Why is that? Because it has batteries, it has a screen, it's thermally stable, it's taking energy from the battery. It has all the traits of a living life form. Right? My laptop the same, the car is the same. We designed it that way because we're producing copies, almost like copies of ourselves. So that is a self-replicating process of life, okay? And it's very possible that when we really find aliens, maybe it's not the organic form anymore. It could be a product of it. And I want you to think about that for a moment. Life can really propagate into a new domain through engineering and computer science and become transcendent in that sense. And that's what I want to conclude with. The astrobiology is not only the study for life, it's the study how the universe become alive and how it may remain so. Thank you so much. I'll be glad to answer questions. And
So,
yes,
John, you talked about, you'll have to repeat the question, presume, but you talked about multicellular life. But bacteria don't seem like they're part, when I think of
Yeah.
multicellular life, I think of cells with different jobs in an organism.
Mhm.
But bacterial colonies, are they classified as multicellular?
They are in a way that
You
not.
have to repeat.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Interpret the question.
Okay, So Mike is asking, but perhaps there are different types of multicellularity. The microbial colonies where the cells, they kind of do the same job versus an organism that have different jobs, different organs of cells that are doing different things. I really like this question. I think it's sort of a step of evolutionary change. In fact, the multicellularity as a concept, and we have tracked this through the history of evolution, have evolved independently multiple times, at least 6 times. And there are different forms of multicellularity, like what we were saying. You know, some of them are division of tasks. For example, you have these cyanobacteria that have a cell that differentiated into nitrogen fixation, while the other cells are doing oxygenic photosynthesis. You have the 2 different cells on the same body, but doing different tasks. But it's not definitely not as diverse as like an animal, right? Because we really improved, how to say that, not improved, but in terms of morphological diversity, animals really made a huge change, because the early microbial colonies, they don't have that morphological difference. And that is a huge thing. And especially we know the animals, the multicellularity of animals evolved because of oxygen, because you suddenly have this high energy material that you can sustain a big chunk of cells altogether. And that's why we have blood flowing in our body, supplying oxygen in the form of iron, you know, and all the way through the cell, all the time we breathe. We have to breathe all the time because there's demand everywhere looking for the energy source, and that is something that is very new in terms of the evolutionary history of life. I hope I answered your question okay. Okay. Yes.
I wonder how close you think we would be to being able to create life artificially. At the cellular machine.
So the question is, how far away us being able to create artificial life using fundamental chemistry and the building blocks. There are multiple groups trying to do that right now. There are labs trying to synthesize material. In fact, there is interesting study where they, I talked about Luca, the last universal common ancestor. And so there is many researchers. One particular group, they took the modern genes from different parts of the cell, and they computationally reconstructed Luca, the last universal common ancestor. And then they went to synthesize those pieces of DNA, all the proteins, all the molecules, but mostly the genetic material. And then they put them together in an empty artificial cell membrane, and the thing went alive. The thing was doing things, and it was crazy. I was fascinated by that. But so that Luca cell is already extremely complex, because they're trying to simplify, reduce, but nothing works. And so eventually they just have to add more things into it, and they made that organism that is entirely artificial. So I guess it's already been done in some sense, but not. Somewhat, but it's not very well doing that. I would say it's because I would be really worried if we create a new kind of life, and it goes into the wild and become really crazy. And yeah, but there are good researchers. They follow the ethics of research, and they will not. There shouldn't be chance of destroying the planet. That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Extinctions contribute to new life forms each time.
Yeah. The way the mass extinction is really a destructive force. It kills, in the example of dinosaur, right? Yeah, the dinosaur, they're all large body, warm bodied, right? And you suddenly have this impact that generated the dust that goes into the sky was in the sky for like 1,000 years. And their volcanisms also activated and all of that. And the climate really cooled, it gets cold. And so all the bigger dinosaurs, they can't survive. They die out one of the other. Some adapted, okay, some become birds and have feathers and stay warm. And so the ecological niches, the ecological framework that used to be stable is disrupted completely. And the mammals who used to be like little mouse in a cave, they were there. They were already there. But when the dinosaurs are around, they could not even come out. It's just that the forces is so strong that they cannot come out and grow bigger because the ecological forces is forcing them to stay there, and it's very stable. Okay. Not until you get this mass extinction type of events, you knock out the large entire body of large animals. And then these little mammals, they came out, okay, I'm good. And they start to colonize, and evolution kicks in. You have these armed forces going on because they start to eat, and the bigger they are, the more they can eat, and they fight better, and they occupy territories. So quickly the presence of mammals replace dinosaurs and become the new ecological force. So without mass extinction, it's very hard to do. It's very hard to disrupt the balance. And that's the ecological balance, not a biological type of balance.
What's next?
The question. So the question is, if you wipe out humans, what else would emerge? I have to say, number one, as conscious beings, very good at a lot of things, multifunctional, really. Very, very hard to knock out all humans, unless you have some kind of deadly virus, or that's the sci-fi category. I wouldn't go too far to say, but it's almost impossible to knock out advanced conscious being. And we are very good at many things, making machines, building structures, building bunkers under the ground. There's, even in the case of apocalyptic event, people will still be around. They'll repopulate pretty quickly, and I think the emergence of self-awareness and the brain is something that will not go away. However, if you knock out 99% of the human, the remaining humans, they will radiate out. They will like the dinosaurs. Not dinosaurs. They're like the mammals in that example. They will come out, and then they will compete for new resources and become even better in many ways. And I think that follows the natural trend. But the technology of having the brain will stay. That's what I think. Yes.
Could you say biofilm?
as related to what Mike was talking about, single cellular organisms acting as a multicellular.
Yeah, so the question is whether biofilm can be classified as a multicellular organism. I think definitely yes. I think them as multicellular in many ways. Although, you know, the definition of multicellular is still like there are different types of multicellular, right? And biofilm in many ways is not a single type of cell, it's a collective of different metabolisms, and they all help each other as a community, and they're multifunction, they're collaborative. And in that sense, you can think of them as multicellular. Although the cells don't really necessarily connect, but they work together. Okay.
In ways down.
Yeah, they do a lot of that. So division of tasks. But I like that question. Thank you.
Maybe for the rest of it, what is a biofilm?
Oh, the biofilm is a collection of microbial cells that form together in a film. The biofilm is defined as very thin, millimeter, a couple millimeter thin. When it's thicker, we call it microbial mats, but it's exactly the same thing. And if you go to Yellowstone, you see this colorful mats. And if you dig in and look at the cross section, there are different colors. And the top, there's orange, and then getting brown, and there's green, and all the way down is black. And so they, in a way, they're performing an ecological function where the top green and orange, they're doing photosynthesis, and the energy material goes all the way down until you don't have those material and become anaerobic at the very bottom. So biofilm and microbial mats, incredible. They have been here since the very first dawn of life. Yes.
I was wondering, there's a lot of, different places we can visit, there's different telescope missions coming up. Is there some mission that you're really excited about? Want to know what they're going to find out?
Okay, the question is if there's any observatories or kind of place, landers. Yeah. So NASA is planning a lot of missions. I'm most excited not about the telescope type of mission. I'm more interested in maybe human exploration of Mars. So that's what I mentioned. But that alone is very challenging. Okay, it's very difficult to do. But I believe given the autonomous system, the capabilities today, I don't think they can surpass a human going there. We're 1,000 times more effective in finding new things. And the reason of that is we are evolved for millions of years to do that. When we get into a new environment, in seconds, we look around, we know where to go. We know where to find things. That intuition is built in. If you have a robot, we are doing AI research quite a bit. The way the robot, they don't have this evolutionary becoming to be explorers. Very difficult to train them to do so. All the robotic stunts you see today, they're pre-programmed. A human trained it to do the thing they do. They're not autonomous enough to do those tasks. That's why I'm thinking about that. But there is a habitable world telescope coming up that is also looking at, especially designed to look at atmospheric biosignatures. Those are really cool. Yeah.
Well, on the same ground, there's going to be missions to the moons of,
Yes.
if you have these buried seas, below the surface. What are your thoughts on what they're likely to find?
So the question is about what are we gonna likely to find on the moon when we go there and have these robotic missions on the moon. Oh, the moons of other planets like Jupiter. Yeah, very exciting. And Enceladus is one, and Titan is another. There are missions ongoing. I think it's extremely exciting, especially Enceladus, where there is a liquid ocean under ice sheet. And very often you see these plumes coming up from the surface. There's a lot of organic material that we know, water and all kinds of salts that if it's on Earth, we know it's going to be teeming with life. There is NASA have a ocean world initiative, so they're testing the submarines that they're developing and looking at first is to actually drill a hole and then you go down, then you have a tether and that allow you to go deeper, looking for life. Another mission is on Titan. It's called Dragonfly. That mission is also very exciting. The Titan is full of hydrocarbons on the surface, almost methane and ethane, all kinds of hydrocarbons. And we think those are some type of feedstock. And the early Earth may have a phase like that too in its times. These organics are a lot of carbon, but they're photosynthetic, they're photochemically generated, and or on the surface generated by these mineral surfaces. That would be a great place to discover prebiotic chemistry. And yeah, very excited about that. Thank you. And
Yeah, given the vast age of the universe, the hundreds of billions of stars and more planets, does it give you pause that there has been no evidence of either organic or mechanical life seen yet?
Yeah, the thing is we haven't seen any yet. Oh, the question is given the billions of stars out there, why didn't we haven't seen life yet, right? So I think the challenge there is the communication speed, the speed of light. And if you look at a star from maybe 200 million light years away, which is not that far even, right? And especially stars from other galaxies, they're all very far away. When the light reaches us, the star is already gone, probably. We don't know what happened. And the thing is, interstellar travel, because of that limitation, is very difficult to know everything all at once. If we want to send an aircraft to discover a new life form, let's say in another galaxy, by the time the aircraft arrived, maybe we are already done for, right? I mean, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but it's there is a possibility, and also if life evolves in the universe in pockets, we'll try to send probes out, right? Which direction can it choose? The entire universe is so big, and the chance of getting a probe arrive to us, the chances are not too high, but I'm still hopeful. Maybe is possible, and I'm not discrediting discredit all the UFO and other kind of observations. I mean, some of them could be. We just don't have a follow-up study on many of them, and we don't have any like a task force is all really controversial, and you see one or two, and then you dig deeper, is all not so. I mean, science is about being reproducing the results and be able to validate things and have confidence, and involves a group of people working together collectively and report the findings. That hasn't happened for any of the UFO research, and I wish there'll be something that we can look into. But yes.
Octopus is strange in so many ways. Where do you think, how does that fit into our knowledge or understanding of life? Where do you think it came from?
So the question is about octopus. It looks so strange, almost like aliens. Where did they came from? I read those papers. Octopus are aliens, and it's fascinating in its own way. The only thing we have to explain is octopus also have DNA. They also reproduce, have all this mechanism, like, I mean, morphologically very different, but at the core, it uses the same metabolic things, and we can eat octopus and not dying, right? I mean, when we shouldn't, and they could eat us and not dying also. And so it's compatible organically, right? So that's my first response. But I would say, you know, the fossil record of octopus is very biased. We have, you know, amyloids, right? Amyloids, yeah. So they're thought to be octopus with a shell, and we have some record of those. But all soft body fossils, beyond anything, is very hard to preserve them. You don't see them in the fossil record, and you just have no idea. And so that could be part of the reason when we see octopus, and they're so, like, historically so weird. And they just don't preserve. So there is extreme bias in the fossil record, and I think that could be contributing to the fact that we think them as aliens, but they have no bones. Mhm.
Jian, thank you very much. Thank you very much for a very thought-provoking talk.